every Muslim has a conversion story. I think there's still inferiority complex, particularly in Pakistan's elite secular class. There's nothing there. There's no new thought. There's no new idea. Who are your really good liberal intellectuals that have some standing in the world? Koi nahi Pakistani. I can't think of a single name. We as Muslims should be thinking at the Ummah level, and we should be thinking about our affairs, social affairs, political, economic affairs at an Ummah level. Agar hum aise karenge, it will force us to think beyond the level of the nation state. We don't have good structures for the activism. हमें चाहिए institutes doing what you're doing, but we also need institutes that are activist. And then there's the collaboration aspect. फिलिस्तीन में कुछ हो, the first people to react are the leftists. Socialists protest करते हैं. मैं जाऊँगा protest पे, कहेंगे ये चीज़ें करेंगे, black card दिखाएंगे, होगा क्या? فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه. And if he cannot, then with his tongue. You're contradicting the logic of the hadith. That is telling you when you can't do anything, speak up. आप कह रहे हो कि क्योंकि मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकता, मैं speak up नहीं करूँगा.
If we look at our data, 57% of people on our channel have not subscribed. यानी अगर आप नसीहा इंस्टीट्यूट के काम को पसंद करते हैं, सुनते हैं, तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि please subscribe. Now we don't monetize our work, but what it does is it helps the algorithm grow. यानी the more the subscribers, the more widely will the message be spread. So if your subscription leads to more people hearing good content, ये आपका सदका जारिया है. And here's the good part. Subscribing is absolutely free. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of the Naseeha Discourse, and alhamdulillah, we have a very special guest, a special brother all the way from Australia, who is luckily ethnically Pakistani, and we happen to have caught him. I have with me Dr. Uthman Badar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh. How are you doing?
Wa alaikum assalam. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing well. I'm not sure it's lucky to be Pakistani. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Dr. Uthman जो हैं, I think इनके तारुफ मैं शेख से ही करवाऊँगा, because I do understand that I think in the Pakistani landscape you are slightly ghair maroof, perhaps more well known in Australia or in the Ummatics community. But can we sort of begin by sort of you letting us know about your academic profile, आपकी तालीम वगैरह, so that our audience can know, and then I'll build the conversation around that.
Currently, I am the research operations manager and lead editor at Ummatics. Academic background, I have completed a PhD in political philosophy, and a master's. So my field is humanities, philosophy. My specializations are in secularism. So my PhD is a critique of secularism. Liberalism, liberal political theory, religion and society, इस तरह के मौज़ूआत. I did economics before that, to a certain level, master's level you can say. But these days that's what I focus on. And I've done some Islamic studies, Sharia studies over the years as well. Been involved in various dawah organizations and capacities. But academically, this is where I am focused these days. And at Ummatics, I kind of manage the research.
Alhamdulillah. तो जे बिल्कुल पीछे चले जाते हैं. And born and raised in Pakistan?
Born but not raised.
अच्छा, but not raised at all.
मतलब 3 साल का था मैं जब.
अच्छा, बहुत ही पहले आप.
हाँ.
तो आपकी schooling सब जो है
सब उधर
बाहर ही है. And it's been Australia since the beginning?
Yes.
अच्छा, so your parents moved and you've been in Australia.
Yeah.
And all right.
True blue Aussie.
Oh, mashallah.
उधर ऐसे कहते हैं, तो कुछ doesn't mean anything, but
Australian accents are very hard to pick. I went to Warwick for my masters, and one of the first professors I had was an Australian, and I remember I came back home and I said to my wife, English आती है, समझ ही कुछ नहीं आ रही थी क्लास में क्या.
वो है ऐसे, obviously जैसे New Zealand accent is even more, Scottish accent थोड़े से हैं जो थोड़े हैं ऐसे, लेकिन that's true. Pakistan में almost automatically I speak English with a Pakistani accent,
Alhamdulillah.
like I'm speaking now. तो वो अब मैं जानबूझ नहीं करता, it just automatically happens. Unless I know someone जो पहले से जानते हैं, बाहर से हैं, तो फिर I will speak in that way otherwise. But yes, the Australian accent is a bit unique. Ummatics conference जो पिछले साल हुआ था इस्तांबुल में, I was the only Australian. It was a crowd largely of Muslims from the UK, the US, some Muslim countries. And everyone was a bit it became a slight talking point, my accent.
How has your journey been? Tell me, in context of the fact that, how was it being raised up in Australia as a Pakistani, kid in one context, and then with racism and all these other challenges? Was your family always religious? Yeah, aapki jo inclination towards Islam hai, ye kaise, when did it sort of, start happening for you?
Yeah, I think I'd say there was some moment, some time when there was a more serious move towards practicing. I think someone said, I think Sheikh Yasir ya kisi ne kaha कि every Muslim has a conversion story. It might not be obviously from kufr to Islam, लेकिन अंदर एक the point at which you became serious, you adopted Islam, मतलब. तो वो मेरे केस में भी है. पेरेंट्स मेरे अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह हयात में है. मैं अल्लाह ताला इंक्रीज देम इन गुड एंड खैर. They were loosely religious in Pakistan. कभी नमाज पढ़ ली, कभी छोड़ दी, इस तरह की चीज़. नॉट लाइक गालिब कहते हैं ना कि शराब पीते हैं वो सूर नहीं खाते, तो उस तरह नहीं. लेकिन ये कि कभी पढ़ ली, कभी नहीं पढ़ी, bit loose,
the quasi cultural.
हाँ. लेकिन ऐसे हुआ है कि I think there's been a two-way relationship in where things have gone, alhamdulillah, in the positive direction. वो उधर गए तो उधर वहाँ भी उन्होंने स्टेट ऑफ द चेंज नहीं किया, बट दे फेल्ट कि यहाँ हम थोड़ा सा फॉरेन कल्चर में आए हैं, तो कुछ करेंगे तो अपना मेंटेन होगा. So one of the things that my father tried hard to do is put us in an Islamic school, because he felt that schooling is really important. अगर ये public में जाएंगे तो, and I think that was a really, really important move, because I have cousins that were there similar time before us, and sometimes the at least their initial journeys were different.
Fair enough.
Put it that way. I'm worried that they might listen to this. Shout out to all my cousins. तो anyway, इन्होंने कोशिश की. और उस टाइम हम थोड़ी पहले बात भी कर रहे थे कि there's quite a few Islamic schools in Sydney now, and in Melbourne and other Australian cities. उस टाइम सिडनी में एक स्कूल था सिर्फ, and in fact it had started, it was 2-3 years old.
अच्छा, very
young. And because of that, he had a long waiting list. So he had to persist. But he made sure he put all 5 of us, by the way, 5 siblings, in an Islamic school. Fee higher thi, he had to work harder and all of that. So may Allah Ta'ala reward him for that. So उन्होंने वो किया. They were still kind of loosely religious, as I said. But what happened is, as we were picking up stuff from school, they had to kind of
cope up with it.
They had to kind of pull up their socks, because you can't say कि नमाज पढ़ो, ये वो करो, खुदा कर नहीं रहे. तो उन्होंने फिर थोड़ा सा वो किया, और स्कूल से भी बच्चे आके बता रहे थे कि ये वो ऐसे. तो दोनों तरफ से थोड़ा इस तरह होके, alhamdulillah, the practice became a lot more the way it should be. लेकिन it was still what we might call like focused on individual aspects, ibadat, akhlaq, and those elements of Islam. मेरे साथ फिर ऐसे हुआ कि जब मैं स्कूल के ख़त्म हुआ, स्कूल 17-18 years old, तो उस टाइम I think was the key moment for me. I went to uni was a bit more now, a bit of independence, but because of the schooling background, Islamic school का background जो था, I kind of naturally gravitated towards the MSA, the Muslim Student Association.
Yeah.
And that became like now a community, a grouping of university students and people who are voluntarily coming together. आप कोई कह नहीं आपको, uni में आप कुछ भी कर सकते हो, you're free. But I kind of naturally, alhamdulillah, Allah guided us to gravitate, and we were part of the MSA. पहले साल I was a volunteer, second year I was secretary, third year I was president.
Mashallah.
of the MSA in probably the premier university in Sydney. Well, that's a controversial statement. Kahin bhi, like in Sydney University, I think is the premier university in Sydney, maybe in Australia. So that was important. And then I also came across in the kind of Islamist or Islamic Dawah space, I came across the Hizb and I joined some of their classes as well. So, but that was steps that I kind of took.
ठीक है.
And at that point, I started, I guess, more consciously learning and then circles of knowledge,
Fair enough.
tajweed and fiqh and this kind of stuff. So I would say around that age, 18, 19 is probably my point of conversion, if you can.
Mashallah. But you would say that, the seeds of that, really the Islamic schooling, helped
Probably,
you.
huh.
Just I mean, detouring from your personal journey, I'm going to come back to that. One, would you say that, you were unique and blessed, and that's certainly blessed, but, that, I mean, we have Islamic schools here, quite a lot of them now, and, you have students graduating from them, and at times, some of them don't want to do anything with Islam once they graduate. It's like, they feel that Islam's been shoved down their throat, they're suffocated. And I mean, it's not just school, it's also the culture, the parents and all of that. Was Australia similar in one sense?
There are. No, it's not as if everyone coming out of that school or any other Islamic school is, gravitating towards Islam. Aise nahi hai. I had lots of colleagues that, ended up doing lots of other things.
Yeah.
But I would say now, the different Islamic schools have different ethos and different approaches and how they do it. And I mean, at the school I went to had lots of issues. Aise nahi hai. Had good elements and had bad elements. It was very academically focused. Very, very academically focused. और Islamic aspect जो उसका था वो nominal था.
Say.
Like there was an environment. Everyone's Muslim. There's a sheikh. You get Islamic studies. You learn Quran. The community है थोड़ा सा. I think that's the key aspect for me. The environment.
Fair enough.
तो उसमें ये है कि I would say, in fact, I would say even though कुछ लोग थे ऐसे जो they went in wrong directions even after graduating from this school or spending some time in this school, I would say the vast majority eventually come around. तो होता है कुछ उस environment में जो आपके अंदर
the seeds are
and the seeds are there, definitely there. मतलब एक चीज़ जो मैं usually explain करता हूँ उसको इस तरह, जो environment वाली बात है कि ऐसे नहीं है कि ये 11-12 लड़के हैं, we were rowdy and behavior was bad and all that stuff. Like the difference was that even when we were doing things or speaking about things or discussing things that were haram, we were conscious that they are haram.
Fair enough.
ठीक है, which is very important point. आप एक चीज़ कर रहे हो, आपको खबर ही नहीं है कि वो, you think it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something and you know it's wrong, that's a different level. It's not as bad.
Fair enough.
ठीक है. And if Allah guides you, at some point you realize that. And जो मैंने देखा बाद में, obviously school में graduates different जगह पे चले जाते हैं, but I would say the vast majority of people in my class and in the school end up in good places because I think there are those seeds. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say this is a big debate actually in Sydney, probably elsewhere. Okay, should people do Islamic schooling or public schooling or homeschooling? A huge debate. I don't have strong stakes in that. In fact, मैंने अपने बच्चे, मेरे 4 बच्चे माशाल्लाह, alhamdulillah. And for primary school, I put them in the public system, but it was because we were in an area where the public school system was all Muslims. Area ऐसा था. उसके बाद high school, which is a bit more sensitive, I've mixed it around. Sometimes I put them in a couple of years in the public system and then in Islamic school. Currently, they're in Islamic school. So I'm not tied down to it क्योंकि उसमें दोनों तरफ होता है. There are some negative externalities of being entirely in that system. Like overall, I think it's important, and overall, I think Islamic schools in the West. I'm not sure what the system is in Pakistan. In Australia and in the West, have had a positive overall impact on the community.
ठीक. Sheikh, I mean, एक चीज़ जो आपने इससे भी पहले कही, with how your father, in fact your parents particularly, were quasi-religious या जैसे पाकिस्तानी parents होते हैं बहुत सारे, कुछ चीज़ें भी करनी कुछ नहीं. And it's amazing that they went abroad, and I think like most Pakistani parents, they realized कि अब हम एक अलग जगह आ गए. It's like us versus them. कि ये लैंड ऑफ कुफर है, ये चीज़ें ठीक नहीं होनी है. अच्छा, वही चीज़ें पाकिस्तान में हो रही होती हैं, अब तो बहुत ज़्यादा हो रही हैं. And the vast majority of people here seem to be apathetic to it. People who are sending their kids to these elite schools, जहाँ हर तरह की चीज़ हो रही है, they don't even realize what they've signed up for, right? And I mean, some people argue कि भाई नहीं बाहर बच्चे raise करना ज़्यादा आसान है. I mean, I think there's always challenges everywhere. But what do we do with that notion? How do we sort of make people realize कि ये जो identity का realization है ना, ये तो किसी भी मुल्क में बहुत important है. Just because the nation state is so-called Islamic does not mean कि you can be apathetic about whatever is happening or वो.
No, I think it's true कि क्योंकि vast majority Muslims के I don't think it's a nation state issue. लोग ये कि ना सब मुसलमान हैं. So there's a apathy, there's a kind of complacency, I think is the right word. There's complacency and you think वे ठीक है जो कुछ क्या हो जाएगा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा थोड़े से नोटी होंगे बच्चे ये वो करेंगे. So there's a complacency and I think people should not be complacent because formative years होते हैं primary school के उसके बाद high school के very formative years. तो you can't take for granted के because an environment is a certain way तो बच्चा इस तरह निकल गया. You have अच्छा even the opposite is true. Like आप इस्लामिक स्कूल में भेज दिया, it doesn't mean आपका जो parenting का जॉब वो ख़त्म हो गया.
बिल्कुल.
You still have to follow and focus and be in touch and all of that. So I think the approach is for parents anywhere not to be complacent and really to do parenting. अच्छा असल में I think असल issue यहाँ ये है कि even parenting का concept, marriage to an extent concept as a conscious act, as a conscious and ongoing project नहीं समझा गया. I think more and more people understand it now.
Yeah.
But perhaps in my parents' generation or the one before, it's just like शादी होती है हो जाती है बच्चे हो जाते हैं पल जाते हैं ठीक है and that's what it is.
Yeah.
But as we understand that these are more conscious projects, then you can't be complacent.
बिल्कुल.
So I think
Yeah, I think that sort of does make sense. Okay, going back to your journey, so you did your undergrad and you're saying that up MS से भी connect हो गए, not connect हुए, but के you had a knack for leadership. You went on to sort of lead certain things that आप हलकात से उन चीज़ों से associated थे, the sobat benefited. And I think from what I got, you were also learning Islam from different branches, people, mashayikh, and that diversity also helps in one sense, right? The decision to pursue a PhD. Was that conscious in the sense that did you tie it up to your dini activities, or was that more of a tabiyat का वो कि भाई आपको पढ़ने लिखने का शौक था? Because you did mention your PhD is in political philosophy and secularism पे आपकी research है, तो बड़ा एक you're an asset for the Ummah from one perspective. I mean, we should have people like yourself lecture at the top liberal arts colleges here in Pakistan ताकि इनकी तो काल उतारी जाए. I mean, there is this notion of हम मरूब हैं आज भी.
हाँ नहीं वो तो बिल्कुल absolutely I don't deny that. I think there's still an inferiority complex, particularly in Pakistan's elite secular class, which and they kind of because of the inferiority complex they copy and paste. मतलब वो copy करते हैं और quality they don't produce quality. मसला असल यहाँ है. Like I'm not saying don't take from the West. Do a good job at least. ये जो there's nothing there. There's no new thought. There's no idea. आपने कौन सा आप दिखाएं कौन से आपके really good liberals, not Islamic. Who are your really good liberal intellectuals that have some standing in the world? कोई नहीं पाकिस्तानी. I can't think of a single name. And that's not even hyperbole. India में है, but handful. वहाँ भी similar dynamic, but there's a handful. I can't think of anyone in Pakistan. So that's one point, but I think that there's a lack of quality. मैं in fact just an anecdote. 2013 या 2011 में मैं पाकिस्तान में था, and I went to I just find out कि there's a literature festival, Oxford जो कराता है ना literature festivals, कराची में था, and I was going to be in Karachi around that time, so I went to it. 2 दिन का होता है literature ये वो, and they bring people some panel discussions and what's not. तो एक panel discussion था उसमें secularism पे. I think Asma Jahangir was there. I forget the name. I think I'm pretty sure Asma Jahangir was there, and there was some other of these liberal, secular, elite types, intellectuals. लेकिन मैंने वो फिर सारा बैठ के सुना panel discussion on secular, and it was really shallow. लाइक उसमें सब्सटेंस ही नहीं था। वो वही बात के लोग जो हैं वो समझते हैं कि सेकुलरिज्म मीन्स लादीनियत नहीं है, इट्स एक्चुअली मीन्स दिस, व्हिच ओके दैट्स फाइन, दैट्स अ गुड पॉइंट, बट यू बी सेइंग दैट फॉरएवर। अगर आप देखें जो सेकुलरिज्म में डिस्कशन वेस्ट में हो रही है, इट्स वे बियॉन्ड दैट, इट्स समवेयर एल्स। मतलब सेकुलरिज्म पे फ्रॉम द वेस्ट देयर हैज बीन अ स्ट्रांग क्रिटिक फ्रॉम विद इन द सेकुलर एकेडमी फ्रॉम द अर्ली 1990s। कि आप 20 साल बाद भी आप वही बातें कर रहे हैं कि ये ऐसे नहीं हुआ वैसे, यू नॉट इवन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द कंसेप्शन ऑफ इट। एनीवे दैट वाज आई थिंक द साइड पॉइंट। जो पीएचडी का क्वेश्चन है ना, मेरा पीएचडी और तबीयत, इट्स बिट ऑफ ऑल ऑफ दोस थिंग्स। जर्नी है लाइक एवरीवन एल्स। ऑब्वियसली आफ्टर अंडरग्रेजुएट आई डिडंट हैव इन माय माइंड कि मैं एग्जैक्टली कहाँ जा रहा हूँ, क्या करना है। देयर वाज फ्यू स्टेप्स हियर एंड देयर एंड सम कंटिजेंसीज एंड ऑब्वियसली कदर अल्लाह इन टर्म्स ऑफ वेयर आई एंडेड अप। मैंने जब स्कूल ख़त्म किया था, अंडरग्रेड शुरू किया था, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह एकेडमिकली अल्लाह हैज़ ब्लेस्ड मी। तो मार्क्स, आई हैड द मार्क्स टू डू प्रीटी मच एनीथिंग एक्सेप्ट मेडिसिन में थोड़े से एडिशनल वो होते हैं टेस्ट्स, बट आई डिडंट हैव माय इंक्लिनेशन वाज़न्ट देयर एनीवे, although my mom pushed me to do those tests. But तो मैंने वो I just kind of tick the boxes on that front. तो लेकिन I could do anything else, but कोई ऐसी चीज़ जो अपील कर रही थी वो मुझे नहीं थी. In fact, even then, as an 18-19-year-old, I had a inclination towards philosophy, Islamic studies, and this kind of thing, but that was not within the scope of social possibilities. इस लिहाज से कि पेरेंट्स ने अलाउ नहीं करना था.
अच्छा.
हाँ, and I would say कि I wasn't an exception to 18-year-old South Asian kids. At that time, अब पता नहीं क्या भी शायद ऐसे ही है. But definitely at that time, you can't go against parental जो limitations. Even though ऐसा नहीं था कि ये करना, but obviously होता है. अगर मैं वापस आकर कहता कि मैं philosophy choose की है तो it wouldn't have gone down well. ठीक है. तो but I had an interest. लेकिन I also had the doubts कि ठीक है पैसा भी तो कमाना, किधर से आएगा philosophy करके, क्या पैसा कमाओगे. But that was more of a stereotype that I had at the time. So anyway, I started, I won't go into everything, long ho jayega, lekin I started commerce law and dropped the law, then did the commerce and majored in economics and finance. And then I realized कि finance में तो कोई jobs नहीं है, कुछ सही हलाल हो, मतलब proper Islamic. तो economics रह गई, economics में तो कोई research ही होती है आगे, नहीं तो public policy होती है. I don't want to work for the ATO or the tax agency. तो फिर almost I was kind of like left with the academy.
Yeah.
को ठीक है आपने इकोनॉमिक्स कर लिया तो अब क्या, चलो मास्टर्स कर लो, पीएचडी कर लो, तो फिर उसके बाद क्या करना, उसके बाद ये टीचिंग होगी, रिसर्च होगा. बट आई वाज ओके एंड देन बाय दैट टाइम आई हैड डेवलप्ड इस्लामिक काइंड ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस, obviously with gaps and wet behind the ears as we say, लेकिन generally there. तो मेरा ये था कि कोई रिसर्च करूँगा on something Islamic. And then actually when I did a honors in economics and then I started a PhD in economics, and both of those were on the idea of a macro, basically riba free economy.
Okay.
उस पे मैं रिसर्च कर रहा था. Again at a certain point it wasn't going anywhere, so फिर मैंने ड्रॉप कर दी. And then at that point now I'm about I think 2016 2015 30 years old. 10-12 साल मैंने समराइज किए हैं. तो इस पॉइंट पे फिर I said कि I'm gonna drop this and then I'm gonna do what I think I should do without any external pressures. क्योंकि इस टाइम तो मैं इंडिपेंडेंट हूँ ना, शादी बच्चे हैं. इवन तो पाकिस्तानी पेरेंट्स आपको पता ही है उस टाइम पे भी. तो अबू तो मेरे माशाल्लाह अभी भी पूछते हैं कि जॉब का फुल टाइम जॉब कब करोगे, कब आ रहा है, इज काइंड ऑफ लाइक ऑन माय बैक. तो but that's good. तो but then I basically said to myself as well, just it's not about career, it's not about money, what's most beneficial, तबीयत किधर है, where can you develop your skills and what can be beneficial for the ummah and the dawah. तो इसलिए फिर उसमें few options थे, but then you have to look at institutions, कौन से available courses ये वो. On my short list was Islamic studies, political science, philosophy, and there was one other one, can't remember now. But in the end, considering everything, I chose philosophy.
ठीक.
And did a master's, did a PhD. And alhamdulillah, looking back, I think that was a really good decision. Because I was able to complement the kind of Sharia studies with the other side. I think यहाँ काफी gap है. मतलब जो obviously it's very important to study the Sharia for students of knowledge, and लेकिन we have many of those. जो dominant paradigms हैं coming from the West, उसको समझना at an authoritative level, we have a lack. तो वहाँ मैंने फिर कोशिश की, and alhamdulillah, I think it's been so far, but it's early in my career. PhD 1.5 साल हुआ है. I still have to publish a book and do other stuff, but roughly this is my journey.
So इसमें माशाल्लाह भाई, very nice journey. So इसमें मेरा एक सवाल था. So when you were making this decision about pursuing a PhD related to Islam या philosophy, तो did you have anyone guiding you कि you could select this field और इसके बाद आपको इस्लाम की खिदमत में या दीन की खिदमत में कोई फ़ायदा हो जाए? Because I am just placing myself here कि मेरे पास भी when we do दावा वर्क काफ़ी लोग आते हैं, then ask you कि मैं क्या करियर परस्यू करूँ, मैं क्या PhD परस्यू करूँ, क्या मास्टर्स परस्यू करूँ, right? So was there anyone guiding you, और इस गाइडेंस की कितनी वैल्यू थी या नहीं थी in that decision?
I don't think there was anyone specifically guiding me, to be honest. थोड़ा सा different है ना. I get that question a lot as well.
Yeah.
By young students. मेरा थोड़ा different था कि जब मैं इस point पे कर रहा हूँ decision, I am 32, 33 years old or something like this, and it's been already like 12, 14 years in the Islamic spaces, seeking knowledge and with people and whatnot. So it's a more mature, mature age
exposure हो गया है.
हाँ, तो उस टाइम मैंने खुद डिसीजन लिया था, खुद ही मैं वे अप कर रहा था. Obviously you have friends you discuss with, लेकिन I don't think there's anyone as such who was who I'd say had any significant impact in terms of guidance. So and yeah, and I think the important aspect in that for me was that by that time I had clarity that I don't want to hold the decision or my career hostage to, or my education hostage to career.
Yeah.
I think this is a big problem. मैं young students को always कहता भी हूँ कि one of the big issues we have in all over the world in education is that education has been held hostage to career.
Yep.
Which basically means कि आप पढ़ रहे हो पैसे कमाने के लिए. Now that's not haram, but that, if you just put it in those words, you stop and think कि क्या इल्म हासिल इसलिए किया जाता है कि पैसे बनाओ. ठीक है, तो in other words you've instrumentalized it. It's become an instrument to earn, and then to what do you earn? You earn to eat, make ends meet. So there should be higher purpose basically. और ख़ास तौर पर knowledge सीखना should have slightly higher purpose. अब इसको थोड़ा सा tweak करें, adjust करें, all of a sudden so many of our givens, assumptions will be क्या कहते हैं, थोड़ा सा shaken. For example, अब क्या होता है हमारे South Asian culture में कि there's a strong bias or a strong preference for the STEM disciplines.
Yeah.
ठीक है, STEM and law, engineering, medicine, ये सब कुछ. And against the arts and the humanities. क्यों? पैसा नहीं बनेगा उधर. क्या करोगे? I think उधर भी है. Even outside there is this kind of stereotype कि if you do earn an arts degree you're not going to earn much and this and that. लेकिन अगर आप थोड़ा उसको शेक करें and you unconnect education to career, which you can't do 100% क्योंकि आपको obviously कमाना भी है कुछ, लेकिन अगर आप sincere intention करो, you can do it. Allah Ta'ala will take care of your risk anyway. आपका risk तो लिखा हुआ है, you don't need to worry about that too much. और ये भी नहीं, खासतौर outside, I don't know here, but there's lots of opportunities after doing master degrees. It's ऐसा है नहीं वहाँ. So it's just some things that we've taken for granted. So anyway, but I think the key point there that I would want to emphasize is we should not hold education hostage to career.
Sheikh, coming to sort of your journey into the project that I think you were doing, Ummatics, ठीक है? So थोड़ा सा एक तो अगर आप, if you, because I know you're not the co-founder, but you're somebody who's been there from the start. Can you sort of tell us what is Ummatics for our audience, right? In a very sort of a simple way, what's the idea behind it? क्या हो रहा है, क्या नहीं हो रहा? And then I speak to you about your role in there.
Ummatics is a concept और इंस्टीट्यूट भी है जिसके साथ मैं काम करता हूँ, लेकिन द बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट इज के we as Muslims should be thinking at the Ummah level. And we should be thinking about our affairs, social affairs, political, economic affairs at an Ummah level. ठीक है? तो अगर हम ऐसे करेंगे, it will force us to think beyond the level of the nation state. And that becomes a starting point for the change that we all want and that we all know we need. ठीक है? कि इसको इस्लाम का निफाज को, खिलाफत को, whatever you want to call the end goal. Everyone understands that currently जो obstacle है, we have problems in a number of levels. One way to put it would be to say that we don't own our own decision. Muslims don't own our own decision. ठीक है? At a socio-political level. तो उसको आप कैसे हासिल करोगे? How will you gain independence? How will you gain strength, power to actually for Islam to be represented on the global stage? अभी तो नहीं है ना. अभी तो ये है कि you've got some Muslim nation states who are run by people mostly who have nothing to do in particular with Islam. They're Muslims. I'm not going down that path, but by and large जो setup हमारा है, it's a legacy of the colonial era. तो उसको आप कैसे आप उसको change करोगे? How are you going to move forward? We want to emphasize the notion of ummah, basically. एक तो ये aspect है कि there's a particular way of doing it. We focus on academics, intellectuals, ulama, but then we also have plans and strategies to expand that to other personas.
ठीक है.
Basic idea यही है कि you want to try and work on the influential classes of the ummah all over the Muslim world. So it's not specific to Pakistan or Turkey or Malaysia, it's across the board. Or each influential group, policymakers, academics, intellectuals, creatives, you want to think about what are the key messages, what is the key ummatic framings that should be delivered to these people and that we should work with and get them to network amongst each other. So इस तरह की जो networking I think is very important, खास तौर पे with the technologies that we now have. It's not that difficult to circumvent and operate above the constrictions of the nation state. उसको आप करोगे, चीज़ें आगे चलेंगी, and then inshallah Allah Ta'ala will open doors to other possibilities.
And right now you're primarily working on research. My understanding is, right?
Yes.
And the idea behind that research is that you're essentially picking up issues that you see are pressing in the ummah, and your papers are based on giving solutions to that.
Yes, not necessarily the pressing issues. Well, I suppose in a sense pressing issues. Focus. Our vision is to empower Muslims everywhere towards a unified Islamic civilization.
ठीक है.
ठीक है. इसके लिए जो research required है is on a number of levels, and there's some key questions you have to answer. What does the modern Islamic civilization look like politically? What are the governance models? What does the economy look like? ठीक है. Socially, culturally, civilizationally. In fact, these are probably the key questions. उससे पहले जो है, or as a prior level, there's papers and work that needs to be done on impressing the importance of this work. पहले अपनी importance establish करना, फिर लोग आगे करेंगे. Like that's a bit easier. I mean, in today's day and age, to be honest, amongst Muslims, it doesn't take long to convince people that we need unity. ठीक है? For the vast majority of Muslims, not everyone. The vast majority of Muslims, particularly practicing Muslims, it's almost a no-brainer that you need unity. हाँ ये कि उसको more solidly establish करना कि it's an obligation, शरी obligation है, that's something as well. तो basically हमारा जो research program है, इसमें मैंने there's a 10-minute talk on YouTube on, actually I'm not sure it's up yet, but it will be up from our last conference in Kuala Lumpur. जिसमें मैं research program को explain करता हूँ थोड़ा सा. उसमें basically we've the rubric that we've come up with is why, what, how. Why Ummatics, what and how. Why में basically ये need है, explaining why this is important. ठीक है, Ummah has an obligation to lead humanity, to set the right example, to call people to Allah, etc. तो वो सारा हो गया. फिर what and how, which is what we're moving to now, those for us are the key questions.
ठीक है.
Because I think that's been one of the major gaps. As a major gap. Even जब opportunity होती है, ऐसे नहीं. Obviously, a lot of our people in sort of political leadership around the world are not thinking about these issues. Lekin we have had some sincere people, some people better than others. And sometimes there's opportunities. ठीक है, Arab Spring में कुछ opportunities आई थी at some point. अभी बांग्लादेश में देखें, there's an opportunity, there's an opening. But एक तो opening, और ये कभी-कभी आती है. It's not every day. But I think the gap we have around is we don't have a program. We don't have something. We don't have a sophisticated, sufficiently detailed program. Easy काम नहीं है to run a civilization, to run states and the rest of it. So anyway, it's kind of a long-term agenda where we identify key questions and then we focus on the research. इसके अलावा we want to also facilitate actual projects. जो research से अलग है, we want to facilitate others to carry ummatic projects.
ठीक है.
Projects different होंगे, social, economic, political, different level पे, intellectual. Project ummatic in the sense that they will connect the ummah. ठीक है, in different ways and different styles. तो वो भी हमने करना है उसमें कुछ, लेकिन currently हमारा focus research पे है, and we're starting out with academics, networking them, bringing them together. So that's what we are focused on.
And would you say that, because I know as a matter of fact you've had 2 conferences as well. The first one in Turkey, the recent one was in Malaysia, right? And I assume that you had influential people coming in from different parts of the country, and the goal there is to let these people network and speak about issues in the ummah.
The goal is to, first of all, for us to establish our network and expand the network, but also to allow them, other ummatically minded people, to network and establish these connections. Istanbul पहला conference था, academic conference था वो, and the point was to identify people thinking in this area. So we put out a call for papers. रैस में ये है ना कि जैसे conferences होते हैं, लेकिन अब मसला ये है कि conferences जो होते हैं, any conference comes from a specific institute. The institute has an agenda. ठीक है, agenda I don't mean in a bad sense. I mean they have some vision, some strategy. लेकिन वो आम तौर पे where we lack is we don't have independent institutions thinking about these issues and working, think tanks or research institutes on these matters. ठीक है. अच्छा, कुछ जो हैं भी, they usually somehow connect to the state somewhere. Or they're doing the usual research. It becomes a job. ठीक है. तो इस तरह की कोई जो, it's like it's a dawah project, but it's run properly, professionally, right? And it's independent. I think that's the key. तो conferences जो हैं उनका ये होता है कि different objectives हैं. इस्तांबुल में ये था कि academic put out a call for papers on, I think he was on, क्या कहते हैं, transcending the nation state, something like this. And as a way to attract postgraduate students and academics, senior scholars from all over the world. कि जो इसकी interest है वो submit करें. And we got like 100 submissions, over 100 submissions for that. But we could only we had space for about 25. तो ऐसे फिर हमने लोग identify किए, and then we went there and we met people and we established a connection and so far. That was mainly a sort of like first public event and networking for us and for the people that came. अभी मलेशिया में थोड़ा सा डिफरेंट किया हमने कि एक कॉन्फ्रेंस किया और एक वर्कशॉप की. Conference now, because one of the things we picked up from the first conference was that because it was very academic, some of the audience found it hard to relate. ठीक है, because academic work and lingo is a particular type of thing.
Yeah.
हमारे from our perspective it was clear, that's how we advertise it, but not everyone got the message, so maybe our marketing wasn't fully on song. लेकिन फिर हमने ऐसे किया कि ठीक है, why don't we have a conference that's a bit more public facing,
Yeah.
and
hence
then the academic work, do it separately. That's what we did in Malaysia. We had a conference 2 days. There were some academics, but there were also other people, and the talks were not at the full academic level.
Yeah, you had the Sheikh Umars and the Sami Hamdis and others.
So, and then along with that, for another 2 days, we had a workshop, closed, private, about 20 scholars, just scholars, on a given issue that we selected to hammer it out. So that was the first style we used. कि अच्छा, इसमें हमने topic जो choose किया था वो था deep difference.
ठीक है.
How do you manage the differences in the Ummah? Because you're saying you want a unified Islamic civilization, one of the key obstacles is all the diversity in the Ummah. It shouldn't be an issue, but it is an issue. ठीक है ना? So that's a serious thing that you have to theorize and work out. कि इसको आपने किस तरह handle करना. So we brought in political theorists and anthropologists and sociologists and some Sharia scholars to discuss and debate this issue over 2 full days.
Yeah.
उससे भी papers आए हैं, and now we're going to develop and move forward on that. I said, and then some learnings from that, how we can make things better and more. But next, हमारे throw different ideas for next year. So we've got a clear vision and a clear broad strategy. Within that, we're quite dynamic and flexible. Do something, do it well. भैया कि जो भी काम करो अच्छे तरीके से करो, दिल लगा के करो. But be open to learning and change and adjustment. That's our kind of approach.
Okay. One question might be sort of dumb for you, but so for people like us based in Pakistan, I mean, I can ask this from a personal perspective and also from Naseeha's perspective that, if I sort of get excited by the idea of Ummatics, right, or one of our listeners says, how can we be part of it? How can we contribute in any sense, right? Is there like a roadmap that's defined for that, or?
Not yet, I would say there isn't.
By the way, गिला भी है मेरा आप सबसे Australians, Americans, आप लोग पाकिस्तानियों को फारिग करा चुके हैं मैंने कहा से.
किस तरीके से?
I think Pakistan we are no more in the
in the picture,
in the picture,
in the frame.
I mean, we know we have our own issues with the
having
economic
the conference in Malaysia and Turkey and not in Pakistan.
I think not that. I think you travel to these conferences now, and we have very little. I'm just saying that in a lighter sense that I think that हमारी अपनी representation बड़ी कम हो गई है, unfortunately. You
mean people from Pakistan or Pakistanis?
From Pakistan से लोग जाते भी नहीं है. कोई एक जैसे कहते हैं, even हमारे उलमा की तरफ से भी एक शिरकत नहीं होती. I know खैर with the scholars एक language barrier भी है, ठीक है. But because एक perspective से मदारिस के सेंस में तो पाकिस्तान को is considered to be the hub of knowledge. तबलीग का भी एक सेंटर रहा, सब कुछ वो किया है. बट इस तरह की because ये एक नया एक समझे एक्टिविज्म और ये जो चीज़ें हैं, मुख्तलिफ इंस्टीट्यूट साथ आ रहे हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें हो रही होती हैं, and hardly कोई एक वो होती है. But I have found these conferences and these academic setting workshops to be really an amazing learning opportunity where people come together, network, and so I think if we have a lead Pakistani at Ummatics, so we can.
I think so. Yeah, I'm not sure why the reason. There are definitely a lot of people of Pakistani background and South Asian background in all of these efforts.
बिल्कुल ऐसे ही है.
तो इसका मतलब ये है फिर कि they're going abroad and they're using the resources and skills in the West, and I think मसला यहाँ है कि Pakistan in certain areas it's producing really good people, ulama, madaris and others, but in other areas, for example in the academy, I'm not sure this quality of what's coming out of the academy is up to scratch. और ये obviously पाकिस्तान का मसला नहीं है. This is a problem I think that has its roots in colonialism and the fact that generally speaking the quality in the global south is a different level than the global north. So it's same with resources and wealth, economic strength. So I think perhaps that's the reason.
I think मैं से किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी कहता था कि जैसे जिस सोशो इकोनॉमिक तबके में हम काम कर रहे होते हैं, which is like middle upper and elite, उसमें आप अगर इस्लामिक स्कूल्स को देखें, दावा ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस को देखें, थिंक टैंक्स को देखें, इन सब के जिनका एक इस्लामिक टिल्ट है अपनी तरफ, राइट, Pakistan seems to be nowhere in the picture in the sense that, I don't think we can claim that we have the best Islamic schools, लोग इधर आए. Malaysia certainly has a place, I know Australia has a place, ठीक है, there are other countries as well जिन्होंने अपने curriculums बनाए, सब कुछ किया. In that sort of a sense, I think हम बहुत पीछे रह गए, right? In fact, to be fair, traditional ulama और scholarship में तो अभी भी people realize कि यार यहाँ जो है ना मदारिस हैं बड़े बड़े, सब कुछ भी है, बट इस जगह पे मुझे फील होता है कि बहुत एक गैप है, right?
Probably, yeah. It's probably for similar reasons. I mean, इतने मसाइल हैं पाकिस्तान में. It's hard, I think, to set up good institutions in any field. और आपको चाहिए होती है, you need institutions to grow and build and establish themselves and then produce good quality people of different expertise. तो अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला सय्यदना मुहम्मद. क्वेश्चन क्या था रीजनल से पहले? आपके लाइटर नोट से पहले एक क्वेश्चन था, मैं भूल गया हूँ.
I think it skipped my mind as well.
So I think related to that, so I really like the concept of Ummatics, and so I just wanted to ask, what are some of the issues that you guys are focusing on? So if I think about it, कि उम्मा को इस वक्त काफ़ी issues divide कर रहे हैं, right? So आप किन issues को prioritize करके अपनी conferences का एक agenda बनाते हैं, एक theme बनाते हैं, right? And also I've attended some conferences. I think conference तब relevant बनती है when it has a clear output that people could choose, right? So I'm expecting or wondering, maybe you guys have some frameworks at an individual level or maybe at an institute level that we can adopt, right? And और उसकी वजह से हम अपने students को who are coming from a diverse background unite कर सकें, right? Or maybe just generally for me also, if I attend your conference at an individual level, I get this broad horizon and this capacity to see differences in the society and how I can unite those differences, right? And how I can be more empathetic towards people कि it's not right or wrong, everyone's right? So ये इन conferences का output क्या होता है, right? कोई frameworks हैं जो हम अपने इंस्टीट्यूट में नसीहा में या अपने इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे इम्प्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं, नहीं कर सकते?
So I 100% agree with everything you said. These are things we hope to produce.
Okay.
अच्छा, context ये है कि I think we were 2 years old. So
yeah,
the output so far reflects the time and
the
resource limitation and whatnot. The plans are much bigger, of course. So and there's different areas, ठीक है ना? तो जैसे deep difference वाला है, is one area we've identified. We've done one workshop on it. उसमें असल में जो there's some papers coming out of it. अभी तक they have been published. I'd say within the next 6 months we will publish a number of papers in that area. But that's not the end. That's one output.
Yeah.
लेकिन then we want to work further on that and develop more specific, actionable क्या कहते हैं, directives या guidelines that you can. अब उसके लिए think करना पड़ेगा ना कि एक तो चीज़ है कि theorizing, political theory, social theory, sharia based theory of dealing with difference. फिर एक होता है कि ठीक है, okay, we've got the model now, how can you actually make it practicable in this, in the west coast of the US, as compared to in the UK, as compared to in Pakistan. ठीक है, तो we definitely hope to work on this stuff. And again, our approach is not कि हमने सब कुछ खुद करना है. We want to empower Muslims. ठीक है, first of all with the discourse and the ideas, but second of all with facilitation of projects that they can do. ठीक है, वो आप ये project लो and you run with it. So definitely deep differences वाला एक topic है. दूसरे जो हमने identify किए हैं, apart from the why ones, which we've, I think, done sufficiently. Currently, we've identified 3 areas, I would say. One is political governance. The other is economic development. And the third is roughly what we're calling civilizational या cultural, philosophical, जो भी. तो उसमें फिर each area में there's a number of key questions that we want to try and address. but each becomes like a node जिसमें आप it's not like you do one thing, you bring people together, papers खत्म हो गई बात ऐसे नहीं है. You want to develop a discourse. Develop a discourse, there'll be updates. मकसद असल में वो नहीं, एक तो ये अप्रोच नहीं कि थिंक टैंक अपने पेपर ट्राई कर दिए कि इंटरनेट पे लगे किसी ने पढ़े नहीं. You know, ऐसे बहुत हैं. In fact, one example in Pakistan is, because I know it, my father was associated and some other friends have been associated, family friends, is Pied in Islamabad.
Yeah.
I think it's been on at least 50, 60 years.
Yeah.
Hundreds, if not thousands of papers. लेकिन उनको होता कुछ नहीं है. कुछ नहीं उसका होता.
ये इंटरनेशनल डोनर्स का भी यही मैंने भी रिसेंट रिसर्च पढ़ी थी. इंटरनेशनल डोनर्स है ना ये, लाइक वर्ल्ड बैंक, यूएन, उनके भी came out कि 92% of papers are not read.
So mainly because lots of these are part of institutional setups in the current system that are part of the problem. उनका ये नहीं है कि आपने चेंज करना. तो एक तो ये कि आपने रिसर्च में चाहिए गुड क्वालिटी, हाईएस्ट लेवल, it has to compete with the top levels. Compromise, इसमें compromise नहीं है. And in a way, this is one of the reasons why it's been an advantage that a lot of the academics who started this are in the West. Okay? Not that being in the West is an advantage in and of itself, लेकिन कुछ चीज़ों में वो है. क्योंकि उनके academic institutions are a lot stronger. Even though they're a lot more challenging from another perspective, लेकिन they're stronger. So people who've come out of them carry that authority and those skills. तो Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. This is the thing. There's a number of key questions, and we want to do the research, and then we want to also identify projects that we can facilitate in different ways and get others to do.
Just shifting gears, and I mean extending. You've been here for about 6 weeks. That's what you said, right?
In the current tour, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you keep coming every few years, and आपका पाकिस्तान से एक ताल्लुक है, and I think आपकी बातों से मुझे समझ आई थी off camera कि आप travel भी कर रहे होते हैं, and you're meeting people as well.
Yeah.
How hopeful are you about the situation with regards to the Ummah in Pakistan? I mean, when you meet people, when you sort of look at things and.
Yeah, look, I'm hopeful, mainly because of the up and coming generation. To be honest, I mean, the people are good, people are nice. I think they get nicer the more north you go. Lekin, with full respect to my fellow Punjabis, lekin people are nice and people are good. They like their Islam, they love their Islam. They wear it on the sleeve when they have to. Lekin I think by and large it's still very cultural and kind of like day to day, you just kind of do it kind of thing. Loose kind of cultural association. Lekin jo main next generation mein dekh raha hu, meri generation or the next one, I think there's a lot to be hopeful for. Inshallah. And there's lots of projects, lots of initiatives. Obviously we're not starting out fresh, right? I mean, Islamic efforts in the post Ottoman era, let's say, in the post Caliphate era, have been many. बहुत efforts हुए हैं, बहुत अच्छा काम हुआ है, बहुत fruit उनके हुए हैं, but we've learned from them as well. और जो एक चीज़ मैं देख रहा हूँ over the last decade and a half is that a lot of people in those spaces have had the ability to move on. Whether it's from a formal organization or whether it's from informal associations or with the sheikh or with institutions, कि उन्होंने अच्छी चीज़ जो है वो ली है, and they've seen areas and gaps and moved on, and now they're trying to improve. So I think we need more of these efforts. There's lots of them. I think the youth are hungry for this stuff, and those whom Allah has blessed with awareness and who have some knowledge and some zeal to do this work, they have a big responsibility. आप जैसे लोगों पे, हम जैसे लोगों पे, it's a huge responsibility that you got to give this your full. And I think if we do that, then there's lots of people. जैसे आपने देखा होगा कि there's lots of people that want to do this. हाँ, limitations and time ये वो, लेकिन there's a lot of zeal and there's a lot of demand. In fact, a problem in the Islamic Dawah space is that in a supply-demand sense is कि supply का मसला है. Demand तो बहुत है. Supply and then quality, I would say quality of the product. is also an issue. So, but definitely I'm hopeful for Pakistan, but also for other parts of the Muslim world.
Definitely.
I personally think it can only be upwards from here,
Inshallah.
and not from this point, from a long time ago. Obviously, जो currently हम देख रहे हैं Gaza में, Palestine में, people may read that as a very low point, but that's only if you don't take a historical outlook, a wide historical outlook, going back to the 60s and 50s. Anyone who has that understanding knows that we're doing much better.
Yep.
And inshallah, from the sacrifices of the Muslims of Palestine, a lot more khair will come.
Yeah.
Allah ke hukum se, inshallah.
Yep. My last question to you, Sheikh, would be that, in context of what you mentioned regarding Palestine, because it is something that is, in our hearts, in our conversation, on our heads as well, that I'll give you my example. You can say when people like us sort of, look at our own response to Gaza, frankly, I think our heads bow down with realizing that we haven't done enough, right? But at times even the statement feels like a lip service, more like a convenient excuse, right? And then, you look at other fragments of society, maybe in the US, and, you see that they're doing a lot more in one sense, and maybe, in others, some other communities are. How important is it to sort of, one, continue doing that, what we're doing as an institute, right? That do we continue teaching them, or do we, pick all of these kids up, and what is your take or on that, and take them to every protest in doing so? And I then sort of make it broader in one sense ke, in that entire notion, for example, off camera I was telling you that we're trying to create this group of people who can go into the dawah field and do all of these things, but in this process we want to equip them, focus on their tazkiyah as well. But a critique that often is there from the other side, I mean, is this that, what are you doing all of this for if none of this can be of help when the Ummah needs it, right?
Yes.
And I know there is sincerity there as well, there is a genuinity to that question as well, but we're sort of, stuck in that circle where it's very hard to answer this. So just, your take on that.
I think, look, obviously, we need different types of work in the Ummah. This is an example that we need in, let's say, in the intellectual space, intellectual tarbiyah space, or ilmi tarbiyah space. And definitely it's not a case कि जब इस तरह की चीज़ आए जैसे जो गज़ा में हो रहा है, you drop everything and you kind of change. You need stability and you have to continue your work. I think what's ideal, what we need to work towards is a model where the curriculum or the program already, first of all, contains the relevant concepts, relevant ideas. फिर जो practical side question हुआ है कि how much can we do, what should we do? Definitely you should be involved. It doesn't have to be as the institute, but you as individuals, you're Muslims, you have responsibility like the rest of the Ummah. So we should be involved. In fact, what you were teaching the students should push them to be pushing you, or should push them to be self-motivated to take part in, relevant protests or other type of activism and so forth. Does that mean you have to go to every single protest? No, that's a logistical question. Lekin obviously these things are analogical to the kind of fard kifaya concept. It's not कि आपने every single one पे जाना है, लेकिन आपने contribute करना है to the effort to the extent you can. अब इसमें असल में जो मसला होता है ना, मेरी जो नज़र में है, वो यहाँ नहीं है. मसला ये है कि we don't have good structures for the activism. And people understand that. तो अब फॉर एग्जांपल अगर आप अपना चीज़ पढ़ा रहे हैं, कर रहे हैं, अब आप तो प्रोटेस्ट नहीं ऑर्गेनाइज करते, ठीक है ना, तो प्रोटेस्ट कोई और करेगा ऑर्गेनाइज. जो कोई और ऑर्गेनाइज करेगा, some are okay, some are not okay, मसला वहाँ होता है. And then you're thinking, and then people are also thinking, there's the other side. This is one side is okay, we haven't developed sufficient structures for the activism side. ठीक है, अब ये that doesn't mean you guys now need to have an activist branch or activist side to your thing. लेकिन as an ummah, we need to think about the point I started with, कि we need in various spaces. हमें चाहिए institutes doing what you're doing, but we also need institutes that are activist. And then there's the collaboration aspect. ठीक है? So you can be comfortable knowing कि I'm gonna go here and it's अच्छा एक वो issue. दूसरा issue ये होता है लोगों के अंदर कि मैं जाऊंगा प्रोटेस्ट पे, कहेंगे ये चीजें करेंगे, प्लैकार्ड लगाएंगे, होगा क्या? असर क्या उसका? What's the point? तो यहाँ that's a conceptual part. And I would argue it's that thinking is coming from misconception, wrong ideas about that whole area. लेकिन sometimes उसमें कुछ merit होता है because because of the other point. Together. Like for example, मैं West का example दूँ, अब West में क्या होता है? Because of the way the communities were established and because our first, second generations were a lot more conservative and not willing to rock the boat and etc. We didn't have good platforms for Muslim activism. अच्छा फिर क्या होता है? जब फिलिस्तीन में कुछ हो, the first people to react are the leftists. Socialists protest करते हैं. ऑस्ट्रेलिया में ऐसा होता है, यूके में ऐसा होता है, यूएस में ऐसा होता है. अच्छा, अब आप मुसलमान हो, आप कहते हो फिलिस्तीन में ये हुआ, I should do something, I should raise my voice. And but what option do you have? You're going to go to the protest by the leftists. ठीक है? अब now that's going to raise some issues. अब तो और भी issues हैं क्योंकि वो LGBT उसमें होता है और भी वो भी हैं. And that became an issue. There's some good work published by Yaqeen on this because it's become an issue recently in the US. लेकिन अगर वो ना भी होता, आप सोचोगे कि eventually कि ठीक है मैं गया इस protest में, where is it leading to? ये जो social leftists हैं ये तो नहीं हमें पैलेस्टीन को liberate करेंगे in the way that we have an obligation to. ठीक है? तो असल मसला यहाँ होता है in these two areas. Number one, we have not developed our institutions or our platforms of activism sufficiently. And number two, there are some misconceptions around कि होगा क्या, वैसे आप you have वो, और ये वाला issues West में भी face करते हैं. Even the socialists face this issue. People think very utilitarian terms. जबकि Islamic that's not how you're meant to be thinking. And in fact protest में तो ये बहुत ही गलत thinking है. Even if people left everything and thought about that one hadith of Prophet ﷺ, जिसमें वो फरमाते हैं सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम कि मन रअा मिनकुम मुनकरन फलियुग़य्यिरहु बियदिही, whoever of you sees a munkar, let him change it with his hand. فإن لم يستطع فبلسانه, and if he cannot, then with his tongue, and speak out against it. ठीक है? अब लोग जो ये क्वेश्चन उठाते हैं कि अगर हम आवाज उठाएंगे तो क्या होगा, you're contradicting the logic of the hadith. That is telling you when you can't do anything, speak up. आप कह रहे हो कि क्योंकि मैं कुछ कर नहीं सकता मैं speak up नहीं करूंगा.
That's really
you know, you haven't understood. It's not on purpose, but people haven't understood the point. That something does happen, but it's not direct and it's not straight away.
Fair enough.
So that's just one example. There's many other, obviously, from an Islamic Sharia perspective, and even from a social movement perspective. इस पे भी बहुत सारा काम हुआ है. People, it becomes a self-defeating thing. कि लोग कहते हैं कि अच्छा जो प्रोटेस्ट होगी, इवन एक completely non-Islamic context में देख लें, climate change, लोगों ने एक identify issue किया, and certain people started protesting and started this and that. अब आप जाओगे, आप leaflets बांटोगे, as a socialist, for example, come to this protest, we have to force, the US to cut their emissions और ये वो. अच्छा, लोग मोस्ट प्रोटेस्ट का फ़ायदा लेते हैं, वो कहते हैं यार इस पे तो 100-200 बंदा होगा, शोर मचाएंगे, क्या होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा. It's not that they don't want to address climate change. It's not that they're not concerned about, most people are concerned about the future of their children, कि अर्थ में क्या होगा. लेकिन वो सोच रहे होते हैं कि यार 200 बंदा, कुछ भी नहीं होगा इससे, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, कुछ नहीं होगा. But because you're thinking like that and the other person and the other person, that's why there's 200 people there. That's why there's not 2,000 or 200,000. ठीक है ना? So anyway, that's going on to another. There's some conceptual issues and there's some structural institutional issues that I think we can work on. They're not hard to do. Alhamdulillah, additionally in Sydney we've had some very good progress on this. And over time I think things are getting better. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Yeah, I know I said last question, but one more thing and we'll close down, inshallah. We have another talk with you, with our students, that coming back to the Ummatic sort of thing, just something that I wanted to check, get your feedback on is the fact, how important do you think is, using the seerah as perhaps the best case study to sort of, build a narrative around the concept of Ummah, because there are so many beautiful stories that can sort of be linked in. Because, what I see in the classical religious seminaries here, and generally bhi hamare curriculums mein, that, the seerah is widely neglected in terms of how powerful it is, how transformative it is, and, what a treasure. And also it's simple, Quran is heard in a sense that Arabi hai, Saqil hai, Hadith, there's a lot of complication to how you take it, Sihat of it. Seerah is plain beautiful treasure and people don't realize it. And, so in your own Ummatics sort of working, where do you sort of see that, and what is your viewpoint on that? Just
first of all, I say I agree 100%. I think relatable, it's a lot more relatable.
Yeah.
Because Quran and Hadith, there's a whole level of interpretation, and then usul, and then things become complicated. But I think the seerah is a lot more relatable. Stories, people relate to that. Is tarah. So definitely, I think it's not something we've identified necessarily in Ummatics. Currently, jo kaam why papers mein hua hai, a lot of the articulation on what is Ummatics and why is Ummatics. It's general. I mean, it's Quran Sunnah, so sometimes it is seerah, but it's not specifically seerah based. We have had some ideas to do something along those lines, but amongst the many ideas we have and the limited resources, they haven't come to fruition yet.
Fair enough.
But I think that's an excellent idea, and I'll take it back. That I think there should be not exclusive to others, but also seerah based articulations of Ummah and Ummatic bonds and so on.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for your time and for sort of,
it's honor, pleasure.
Inshallah, I hope that we can host you again once we sort of, have you come back to Pakistan.
Inshallah,
I hope, I just want to say to all our listeners that I would certainly recommend that you visit ummatics.org. If you put it up on your web address, it would come up as the first website. Look at the work they're doing, and just make your irada for the next conference. Maine kar liya, theek hai. If sort of inshallah, because I think there's so much to learn at these conferences, so many new people that you get to meet, and it will be so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah in the work that you people are doing. May He sort of, unite the hearts of the Ummah and truly sort of make us one. Jazakallah khair.
Very good. I really like the work and the efforts at the Naseeha Institute.
Jazakallah khair.
And Allah Ta'ala put barakah and
Ameen.
reward your efforts.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.